What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, Branded Dude. Today's video I am going to show you my guide on what cards to play and to side against depending on the certain meta deck that we are going up against. So right now we know that the new meta right now consists of Rajio Mitsurugi. Mainly I think Rajio Mitsurugi is so far the strongest deck. We do have Malice Adignista, which has got a few supports as well as new cards to play. And we also have Mitsurugi on its own as a pure build. But yeah, those 3 decks currently are the new meta. Another mention that we will talk about here in this video is Regenesis Kashtira. I think this is a deck that may come out of nowhere, and also it's a pretty new deck, so obviously some players may not be prepared for this. So yeah, in this video we'll go over what cards to play and what cards to side against when going up against Rajio, Mitsurugi, Malice, Adignista, as well as Regenesis Kashtira. So hopefully you guys do find this video entertaining. Also hopefully it does inspire your deck building. But yeah, after watching this video, if you guys have any other suggestions or comments or anything else you would like to make known, please do let me know in the comments below, and let's hop on straight into the first deck. Alright, so first deck here we're going to talk about is Regenesis Kashtira. This is a new deck that has recently come up. The Regenesis cards, as we all know, Regenesis, they have a special I guess ability. I don't want to say ability, something about them makes them special. Old Regenesis cards, they have the ability to special summon themselves from hand as long as there's a monster on either side of the field with 2500 original attack or defense. So they don't activate to summon, it's simply just a special summon, just like how the Kashtira cards work. If your opponent, if you don't control any monsters, they simply just put themselves onto the field. So this ability of Regenesis to be able to just summon themselves onto the field without activating can make it difficult for Branded to deal with, mainly because obviously we do play Grand Gugnol, which only triggers when a monster is special summoned off an activated monster effect. So Grand Gugnol doesn't become that great when going up against Regenesis. So Regenesis being able to just simply put themselves onto the body without activating any effects can sort of slow down our grind game, I guess, if that's the appropriate word. But the other issue is that with Regenesis they are able to play the Kashtira engine, yep, specifically Unicorn and Birth. Those cards can really affect our grind game, being able to rip a card out of the extra deck, and also just banishing cards face down from either our field or graveyard, and honestly it hurts our grind game. But Regenesis being able to, there are a couple of Regenesis cards. One is obviously here on the screen, you can see Regenesis Sage, which is basically the deck's Omni Negate. They have Dragon, which banishes a spell or trap. They have Warrior, which bounces a card from field back to hand. They also have Regenesis Lord, which honestly is a 5k beat stick during the battle phase only. But Regenesis, yeah, the other crazy thing about Regenesis is their recursion. The fact that if they send to the graveyard during the opponent's turn, they can simply activate to add themselves back to hand. So honestly, the way they're able to just add themselves from grave to hand during your opponent's turn is what's going to make them be able to keep pushing. But the issue is, well, not issue, the one thing I would say is that the Regenesis grind game is not as good as Branded. We have a much better grind game compared to them, but Regenesis can definitely flood the board a lot better than Branded. So yeah, what makes it difficult for going up against Regenesis is one, Kashtira engine, and also the fact that you cannot rely on Grand Gugnol to help further I guess help you to further combo. But the best way to go around dealing with Regenesis is, one thing I've noticed is that Regenesis Kashtira is a deck that searches a lot. So as you can see here, obviously if you are main decking Droll, or if it's in your side deck, Droll is one good card to play in your list. Obviously you'll see that we can play deck lockdown. Obviously it stops them from adding cards from deck to hand. But does Regenesis Kashtira summon a lot from deck? No, they don't. So deck lockdown, I wouldn't say it's a good option. It's the only thing worth about it is just stopping them from adding cards from deck to hand. Draw, yeah, definitely good for that. One thing I also want to point out is, as you can see here, something that could be worth playing is Book of Eclipse. The reason why is that the Regenesis monsters can only special summon themselves if there is a monster face up with 2500 attack or defense. So Book of Eclipse Sure, we don't want our opponent to be drawing too many cards, but you can swap Book of Eclipse for Book of Moon, or which any other sort of trap card as well that flips the board face down. Being able to keep the monsters face down can prevent your opponent from being able to just spam the board with all the Regenesis cards, so that is something that could be worth playing. One thing I would also suggest is that being able, or playing Chaos Star Source, Chimera, or Borrel of Furious, the cards that pop cards on the field, those could really help you with stopping Regenesis Kashtira from just gaining momentum. Just pop the cards, specifically Birth. Obviously, you can pop the Regenesis monsters as well, but one thing you must consider is when you are popping them. If you are popping the monsters during your turn, just know that there's a good chance that your opponent will be able to add them back to hand during the end phase. So one thing you should also try to consider is if you're going to destroy cards or get rid of their engine, whether it's the Kashtira engine. Well, with the Kashtira engine, you just need to make sure that Birth is not on the field. It just doesn't, you don't allow it to use its effect to special summon. But with the Regenesis, if you're going to get rid of them, make sure that you at least get them banished or out of the graveyard. So Mirror Jet obviously can be really helpful. You'll see here that I also suggested siding in Different Dimension Ground, which can be good, but Different Dimension Ground should only be used during your turn if you're going to like enter battle, pop cards or something like that, because then they just end up being banished. Regenesis, it doesn't really go into the extra deck because I believe it's Regenesis Code, the quick play spell that locks them out of the special summoning from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So yeah, they don't really go into the extra deck a lot. So if you're going to try slow down Regenesis Kashtira's grind, just try banish the cards instead, specifically the Regenesis, so that they not able to add them back from grave to hand. Another card, I'm not saying this is something you must play, but if you want to consider, Soul Release can be pretty good, because getting rid of the Regenesis spells can also help you slow down their grind, because the Regenesis spells actually have the effect where I think either they can banish themselves and add Regenesis monsters from grave to hand, or they can special summon Regenesis monsters from the grave onto the field. So Soul Release, if you can get rid of the Regenesis spells and any other names, that can also slow down Regenesis grind as well. Nibiru is pretty good against Regenesis Kashtira. Obviously, the only thing is with Nibiru, you need to be careful of Regenesis Sage, because it is an Omni Negate. So if you're going to use Nibiru, make sure that you have a way to deal with Sage as well before you can fully benefit from Nibiru's effect. Purulia, Mochami Purulia, insane. Regenesis Kashtira, they summon so much from hand. Honestly, it's like flu, but they're just special summoning instead. So Purulia is definitely pretty good. Definitely going to make them consider how many summons they want to do, and it could slow them down. But I think the main key cards that you want to play against Regenesis is Droll, or anything that stops him from searching, anything that flips the monsters face down, including your cards, because obviously it does consider whether your monsters have 2500 attack and defense. So flipping cards face down definitely can help, and any cards that pop the field, so Chaos Star Source, Guardian Chimera, Burrow of Furious, or even Branded Beast, sure. But yeah, being able to just pop the field, stop them from summoning too many bodies, can help you quite a bit. So yeah, that is sort of my take on Regenesis Kashtira. This isn't a deck that's seeing a lot of play right now as it's come out. Sure, you may face 1, 2, or 3 few people playing this deck, but this is a deck definitely that you may feel like you may not be prepared for it, because it's not really built the same way as Malice and Mitsurugi and Rajio. It has its own sort of unique abilities. So yeah, do consider these. Obviously, in terms of what cards we most generally will be having in our deck list, because we are preparing for mainly Rajio or Mitsurugi or Malice. Droll definitely will be there. Purulia, Nibiru. Some players do play Nibiru, but if you don't, cool. Just consider those cards as well. So let's hop on straight into the next one. All right. The next one we have is Rajio Mitsurugi. Now, Rajio Mitsurugi is so far, I think, the best deck right now in the format. So there is a lot we're going to have to cover here. So one thing you need to know about Rajio Mitsurugi is Super Poly is honestly your best friend. It will be your best friend here. Bestials is not really mandatory, like you don't need to play a high bestial package, but bestials can also help you with slowing down Rajio Mitsurugi's grind game. So first thing we had to start with, I started off with, was Super Poly is your best friend here. As you can see down there, if you have Super Poly and let's say you have Albaz, obviously with Rajio Detonator you can go into Mirror Jade. With the Mitsurugi monsters, which are all dark, you can Super Poly go into Lubellion, the Searing Dragon, to keep fusion summoning. But with Cartesia and Aluba, you can obviously go into with Cartesia you can go into Grand Gugnol, and Aluba definitely you can either go into Masquerade if you're choosing just to use a dark monster. But if your opponent has Aluba if you have Aluba, sorry, and your opponent has Detonator and a Mitsurugi monster on the field, you can Super Poly all three of those monsters to go into Priscinion. And with Priscinion, quick effect, if it's during the main phase, you can either choose to banish their Detonator in graveyard, or you can steal it, summon it onto your field, and then obviously on summon Detonator will trigger to attach, and then you get a free pop with your opponent's Detonator. So yeah, Super Poly is honestly your best board breaker against Rajio Mitsurugi. But besides from Super Poly, obviously the way you want to slow down this deck is with Mirror Jade. You would sort of want to banish the Detonator because Detonator is at 1. Banishing the Mitsurugi rituals can also help you, but the thing is you need to remember that Kusanagi can add a card back from the banished pile, but Kusanagi is usually only played at 1 copy in these decks. So using Mirror Jade to banish the rituals and also getting rid of Kusanagi can honestly help you with having an advantage against this deck. Bestials, yeah, this is where Bestials also can be played. Some people do play, typically brand players are playing 3 Serenias most of the time, so Bestials can be pretty good. Just banish whatever targets in the graveyard, and yeah, I think you'll be able to slow down the ground game. In terms of the other fusions that Branded does play, Drago Stapelia is also pretty good. It's not a massive, I don't want to say massive, it's not a game changer, but Drago Stapelia being able to modulate the Rajio bodies, the Rajio cards levels to 1 can stop them from just spamming rank 4 XTs onto the field. But yeah, it is something you could play just to consider. It's not a good Super Poly target in all honesty, but you know, being able to just make monsters level 1, which also ultimately does negate the effects, it can sort of help you with making your Rajio Mitsurugi opponents' lives a bit difficult. Another thing you must consider is with your Chaos Star Source and Guardian Chimera, being able to pop mainly the back row can be beneficial, because obviously we need to deal with Rajio Cross, the field spell. That is a monster negate, so being able to get rid of that. Also, it is a sort of recursion, you know, being able to shuffle back the Rajio cards and draw cards, so being able to stop that is pretty good. But if you're going up against Mitsurugi variants, you do obviously want to get rid of set Mitsurugi prayers or something early, so that you know they don't do it later during your combo. So being able to pop the cards is pretty good. You can use Chaos Saucers obviously to pop the monsters, but yeah, being able to get rid of back row is also pretty advantageous for us when going up against Rajio Mitsurugi. Now in terms of the siding cards, so obviously against Rajio Mitsurugi they do search quite a bit. It obviously depends on the hand, but they do have to search quite a bit. So Droll and Deck Lockdown is pretty good. Deck Lockdown honestly is actually insane. Deck Lockdown is so insane against Rajio Mitsurugi. Stops them from searching and also stops them from summoning from the deck. But obviously if your opponent does have, let's say, Harpies, or they have X Rajio to send Aggregator, they can play around Deck Lockdown that way. But Droll and Deck Lockdown is honestly your strongest bets against this deck list. Against Rajio Mitsurugi, you can try playing Dimensional Barrier. You know, you can either call Xyz or you can call Rituals, whichever one you don't want to deal with. So D-Barrier is also a pretty good option. Now you will see that there is also a different Dimension Ground. Now this card is not really necessary. The only thing is obviously with different Dimension Ground, if you want to stop their Mitsurugi spells, you know, when they tribute, I kind of forgot if they tribute for cost, which I think they do, but with these obviously you banish the monsters. And obviously you need to remember that the Saji, Kusanagi, Aramasa, I think those 3 cards are at 1, so getting rid of those pretty early. I'm not sure, they don't really rely on recycling Kusanagi, Aramas, and Saji a lot. Those are usually just to help them get their combos and get access to the needed Mitsurugi spells and traps. But different dimension ground, if you want to, you can. It's not really that strong, but do consider playing different dimension ground if you're going up against a pure Mitsurugi build. That would definitely sort of slow them down, because now they're gonna have to banish quite a bit of their monsters when they tribute. So yeah, it is pretty good if you're playing up against the pure version, not against the Rajio Mitsurugi variant. Harpies, back row removal is your best friend against this deck. Sure, Mitsurugi, they do have the trap card, Mitsurugi Great Purification, I think it's called, which is basically their Omni Negate. But the whole point is back row removal is your best friend. Right now, back row removal is honestly your best friend. Even against Malice, getting rid of the back row is honestly going to help you. So Harpies, Lightning Storms, or you don't need to play, Cosmics or any of that. Honestly, just Harpies and Lightning Storm is pretty good. So yeah, starting your turn, if you're going second in game 2 or 3, Harpies honestly just reduces the amount of interruption you have to deal with. Get rid of even sets, imperms, or whatever. But yeah, Harpies is pretty good. In terms of Malchamis, Perulia, honestly, yes, that is your best one to go up if you're going up against Rajio. Perulia against Mitsurugi, not that good. Mitsurugi, they do summon quite a bit from the graveyard, so you could consider playing Mules there instead. But Perulia against the Rajio variant, I guess if it's Rajio, insanely good. Honestly, yeah, they're going to be drawing quite a bit of cards there if they decide to keep combing off. Fuolos, yeah, Fuolos is Fuolos, there's nothing to say there. So Perulia and Fuolos is pretty good against Rajio Mitsurugi. In terms of if you're going up against pure Mitsurugi, I would rather consider playing Mochami Mules instead of Perulia or Fuolos, because with Perulia, if they just ritual summon from hand, that's all you're going to get. Fuolos, you're most probably only going to get it if they ritual from the deck, and if they use Habakiri's effect to summon from deck and tribute. So, but Mules, I think you get a lot more of Mochami Mules against the Mitsurugi, the pure Mitsurugi build. So yeah, those are the siding cards. Obviously against Rajio Mitsurugi, just being able to banish their cards, the main cards like obviously the Rituals and Detonator, will slow them down quite a bit. But you'll see, I also want to mention is that when you're going up against this Rajio deck and whatever variant it is playing, recently Rajio players have started to play the Harpies Featherstorm as well as the rank 4 Castel, the Sky Blaster Musketeer. So Harpies Featherstorm, yeah, as you all know, this is basically you can't do anything. That's literally what the card says. You can't do anything. Your monsters can't do anything. You just sit there, set your spells and traps and pass. So one thing I would want to consider is obviously if you're going let's say game 2 and 3 and your Rajio player is going first in game 2 or 3, they most probably do side in. They will definitely side in the Harpies Featherstorm, overlay into Castel, and either if they use Thrust or if they hard draw the trap card, they will just set it and then pass turn. So one thing you want to consider how to play around the Harpies Featherstorm is that you actually need to make use of something like Book of Eclipse or Book of Moon, either one, something that flips the rank 4 wind monster face down, because the trap card says if you control a winged beast monster for the rest of the turn, blah blah blah, like your opponent can't activate something. It doesn't have a cost. Its effect will only resolve if your opponent still has a winged beast monster face up by the time the trap resolves. So if you go, let's say your opponent obviously sets the Harpies Featherstorm, summons the Castel, goes to your turn, and let's say you have Eclipse or you have Book of the Moon. If your opponent starts activating Harpies Featherstorm, all you need to do is chain your book, flip the Castel face down, and by the time Chain 1 resolves, because the opponent doesn't control a face up winged beast monster, the trap card doesn't affect you in any way. So yeah, this is, I know branded builds, they do used to play Book of Eclipse recently. Some builds have started to pull away from that, but I'm just saying, if you do want to play or find a way to play around Harpies Featherstorm, this is your best way, just flipping the monster face down so the trap is just nullified completely and doesn't affect you. But yeah, honestly, I think Rajio Mitsurugi branded does have quite a bit of cards in the deck list that honestly does make it seem like it's prepared to just play against this deck. We're not like sort of disadvantaged or anything like that. I guess we're not really disadvantaged. We do have quite a bit of cards and engine just to deal with Rajio Mitsurugi. So honestly, yeah, this is what I would say is the best way to play against them. So yeah, let's hop on straight to the next one. Now, last but not least, we have Malice Adignista. Malice has gotten some new support. Combos are a bit different, but we still have a plan. So against Malice Adignista, again, I would say Super Poly is your best friend. Super Poly, as you'll see down here, Super Poly with either a combination of Owlbear, Cortesia, or Luba, and either one of the Malice Link monsters, or whichever other Dark Cybers monster Dark Link monster they have, or either all three of them, like White Binder, Hearts Crypto, or Red Ransom, or even with Allied Code Talker. You can go into various number of fusion monsters. So Super Poly, obviously, if you have a Luba with just one of their dark monsters can get you into Masquerade. If you have a Luba and let's say Cortesia, and your opponent has at least one dark Link Cybers monster on the field, you can use those to go into Proskinion. Yes, you can use it to either banish, which is not going to be good for you if you're going up against Malice, but you can also use Proskinion just to steal a monster, gives you an extra body, cool. Or you can just use Owlbears and a Link go into Mirror Jade, cool. Mirror Jade obviously is not your strongest bet against Malice, because banishing their cards is not going to do too much to them. Either you're going to help them or you're just going to trigger too many effects there. So yeah, obviously Mirror Jade is an option, but with a Luba and Cortesia, obviously with Cortesia you can go into Grand Gugno. I don't know why I didn't put Grand Gugno there, but it is there. Another thing you want to consider is that with Super Poly, I guess in terms of where you don't need to use Owlbears, Cortesia, or Luba, Super Poly can also go into either Garura, Starving Venom, or the World Chalice, God Dragon, Armaduke. So obviously with Garura, Malice, they're only playing Dark Cybers monster. That's literally what all the monsters in his deck are, just Dark Cybers monsters. So Garura is pretty strong, get rid of 2 bodies. Starving Venom just needs 2 dark monsters, and if they destroy, I think if they destroy Starving Venom, it will basically trigger Starving Venom's Raigeki effect. So pretty good way to clear up their board. But also another one you can consider, if your opponent just has 3 dark Link monsters, or not 3 dark, just has 3 Link monsters on the field, World Chalice, God Dragon, Armaduke is a good Super Poly target. Now Armaduke is basically only going to be a body on your field. Sure, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, but it is something you can consider as a Super Poly target if you want. I am currently testing it out. Have I had any success with it? No, because I've never been in a situation where I could just Super Poly 3 Link monsters. I usually just ended up just always going into Garura, or winning already, or just losing badly. So Super Poly, yes, as I said, is your best friend against this deck sorry. So Super Poly, best friend, honestly, such a strong board breaker. But let's just look onto the other stuff. So now we obviously know Malice Adignista. The new support, it will be the backup Adignista, the Wizard Adignista, Malice March Hare also. But one thing you need to consider is that backup Adignista can only summon itself if your opponent controls a Cybers monster, I believe, unless I have the wording incorrect. But being able to get rid of I don't know, it's something about a Cybers monster, I think a Dark Cybers or something, not exactly sure, but the opponent obviously needs to control a Cybers Link monster on the field, so being able to get rid of that Link monster before backup Adignista can trigger to summon itself can also help you, because now obviously they need to commit more bodies to bring out other Cybers Link monsters onto field before they can just activate backup Adignista. So you can consider obviously they're like either using Mirror Jade to either banish, or you can use the Chaos Star Source or something else just to pop these Link Cybers monsters on the field so that backup Adignista cannot summon itself, because backup Adignista along with Wizard just honestly gives them, I think, like gives them almost 4 bodies onto the field, which is pretty insane. But yeah, that's one way. If you want to slow down backup Adignista, get rid of this Link Cybers monster before they trigger her effect. But let's say backup Adignista obviously resolves and they get access to Wizard. One thing about Wizard is that Wizard says that you must target a dark Cybers monster in your grave and then special summon both these cards. So this is where your bestials can sort of come to play, or anything else, Kobai or something that just causes your opponent to lose target, because Wizard needs to summon itself and the other card as well. So just using your bestials there on the target can help you reduce the number of bodies your opponent can place onto the field with Wizard and slash or backup as well. So yeah, do consider that as well when your opponent is playing the backup and Wizard package there. Regained, Branded Regained is honestly going to be your best friend here. One, being able to recycle your opponent's banished Malice cards so that they're not able to put them onto the field is good. Get a draw obviously, but also Regained is going to be your best friend because Malice, they banish your stuff from graveyard. So honestly, being able to just recycle whatever fusions or whatever monsters you need into your deck can keep you in the game. So Branded Regained is pretty good there to consider when going up against Malice Adignista. Unfortunately, with Malice Adignista, we must be careful because as much as they can play Ash Blossom, we also need to be worried about Dominus Impulse. So it is pretty difficult to play against Dominus Impulse, but we do have quite a bit of cards that can help us fusion summon. We have Super Party, we have Cartesia, hard normal summon Albaz if needed, we have Brandon White, Brandon Red. So yeah, Dominus Impulse obviously against this deck, it is pretty tough for us to deal with because they can hit you with Ash Blossom and then they can hit you with Impulse. So I think Impulse has to be set for that one, but yeah, do be careful. In terms of siding cards, so obviously we all know Lancia is the winning card against Malice. Lancia, once you hit Lancia on them, that's it, bro. They're not going to do too much. Sure, with backup and Wizard, they now are able to still do a bit of plays. So don't think that Lancia is just going to win you. If they have Wizard and backup or either one of the two or access to one of the two, just do be careful because they can spam the board just with enough materials and to link climb just to what they need. And they can just set up a semi-decent board here. But Lancia and Artifact Sanctum, yeah, sure. Sanctum, you can switch off Thrust if you want to, or you can just play Lancia. That's also pretty cool. Chaos Hunter, obviously, yeah, that's technically Lancia as well in itself. The only difference is as long as it remains on the field, it will continue to stop your opponent from banishing anything. So yeah, Lancia and Chaos Hunter, pretty good. Harpies, Feather Duster, now back row removal is going to be your best friend here because being able to get rid of the back row will put you in a much better position when going up against this deck. It obviously depends. Some Malice builds are not playing too many of the Malice traps, but if they do, set Imperm or Impulse and you're able to just blow the back row up, you will just have less interruptions to deal with. So honestly, Harpies, Lightning Storms, anything that destroys the back row is pretty advantageous for us, so do consider playing those. Mochami, obviously Mochami Mules was specifically made for Malice, being able to draw cards. Obviously they're not going to do too many effects here. And Fuelos, yeah, Perulia is not your best friend here. You could only get 2 draws if you're going to if you want to draw off backup and Wizard. That's it. That's all you're going to get with Perulia, so it's not really that strong. But Fuelos, yes indeed, Fuelos is honestly broken. Mules, yep, even more broken when going up against Malice. They're not going to do too much. It's not a card I showed you, but you can consider playing Nibiru as well. It just depends if they summon Allied Kotoka before your Nibiru, or if Allied Kotoka can still negate Nibiru, it can be an issue. But Nibiru is also pretty good because Malice plays, they do summon flippin' like gazillion times during either your turn or it can even be during your turn or their turn, whichever one of the two. But Nibiru, you can consider playing that. But yeah, it's not going to do too much because either they'll have Malice March here to help spam the board again, or they will have the Malice traps to just basically do the whole combo, as we all know and as we have seen a million times. So yeah guys, this is my thoughts on what cards to side in when going up against Malice. Obviously also what cards to play and what to consider in terms of your strategy when going up against Malice Adignista. Malice Adignista is pretty unique because obviously it's not like any other deck. The fact that banishing their cards doesn't actually affect them as it would for other decks, because they will either just gain benefit from those from anything being banished. So yeah, do consider just destroying the cards, leaving the cards in the graveyard. Sure, they can banish it, but once they banish it, it's totally fine. Just make sure you have enough cards to deal with what follows. And yeah, do remember, against Malice, back row removal is your best friend, and Super Poly is your super best friend. Literally, it really is. So do consider using Super Poly. Just break their board, going to, you know, these mentioned Super Poly targets, and obviously being able to recycle the Super Poly targets if you have still access to other copies of Super Poly in your deck, depending on how the game is going, can help you just keep their board in check. So yeah, guys, this is the last one here. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts and, you know, obviously my opinions on what cards to play and what sort of strategy to follow up when going up against these various meta decks. If you do have anything you would like to mention, or something you would like to correct that I may be wrong about, or any new cards or other strategies you want to suggest, please do comment down below, and obviously we will benefit from this. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.